Hey everyone, it's Arash Adnani from privateplacements.com. We're back with another really exciting one. When we do some of these interviews, sometimes we luck out, and the guest that we bring on happens to be a guest that is very much so involved in very topical events and topics. And today is exactly that. We have the CEO of Sprott Inc, Peter Grosskopf, with us today. Peter, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Arash. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. So listen, you guys have been absolutely dominating the headlines with the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. Especially this week, there's news and more physical uranium being added to the reserves. What I want to talk about, we will get to that, and we will get to some of the other things you guys are working on. Just as a background, I met Peter about a month ago. We were talking, and Peter was kind of giving me a list of everything that Sprott was doing, in addition to Spot, the Uranium Trust, etc. And I got so excited that a couple of days later, I emailed Peter and I said, listen, can we do an interview? Because there's so much going on here that I'm not really sure people really understand. And a lot of it is relevant. A lot of it, I think, is extremely relevant to our audience. So I'd like to do an overview. We'll talk about some of the smaller items or details. But first off, Peter, can you just give us a background, kind of an overview of Sprott Inc, the organization, and everything that falls underneath it?
Sure. Well, Sprott's been around for 40 years, and so we're no overnight success, but we've been building the vision is to build the world's premier firm at providing precious metal and other mineral investment services to our clients. And we've assembled a great team, talent that most people would recognize. In order to do that, our strategies are unique, and they go all the way from physical metals on the one hand to very private focus strategies on the other. So we manage a total of just shy of 20 billion US. A lot of that is in our physically stored and trusted services that we provide investors buying our trusts on the New York Stock Exchange in Toronto now. And then we have public equity strategies. So we run equity mutual funds and hedge funds like other precious metal managers would. And then we have private strategies that focus on project development and more specific mandates. They're both debt, sometimes equity, streams, royalties. And finally, private client services, which is a brokerage activity where we handle high net worth clients and clients that want to deal with us for the purpose of doing placements. So it's pretty broad, and we get involved in all aspects of minerals, ranging from early stage drilling to late stage production and physical metals themselves.
I think the name Sprott, when you think of it as a brand, and when you think about the natural resource space globally, it's a name that always comes up, whether it's a lead order or it's one of the physical metal trusts. The one new offering, Spot, the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, has been, for lack of better terms, a shot in the arm of a sector that was starting to get maybe a little bit tired. It kind of reminds me of, when you're watching a soccer game and you're in the 75th minute, the team's tired and the coach subs on a new player and the new player's got fresh legs. And here you guys come in, I believe it was maybe late July of the inception. Since then, you've exceeded 32 million pounds of physical uranium for investors. This is probably the best way to have access as an investor or exposure to physical uranium. And the spot price yesterday is back to 47. Can you, sometimes I forget, because me and you and other people that follow this story are so close to it, we forget that there's a whole world that's not quite understanding this story and the opportunity. Can you give us a background on what led to Sprott wanting to start this and become a serious player in the space?
Well, it's been a long time coming. So we've been following uranium and investing in uranium for decades. And We were and have been and still are some of the bigger equity investors in the sector. The Uranium Trust (UPC) was brought on to Toronto, and Sprott played a pretty crucial role in its inception over 15 years ago, I believe. And this recent deal took 3 or 4 years in total to plan out. And what it involves is really a modernization of a physical trust to hold uranium. It involves marketing that trust to a much wider audience and to having that provide a daily nav, more information, more content about the sector, and a more active creation program for new shares. So it's really modernized in every way. We plan a few more improvements, and we're trying to get the liquidity to a higher level, and we're trying to make sure that investors have access to that information all the time. And it's worked out just as well as we thought it would. And it's really become the preferred trading unit for physical uranium.
When I think a lot of people are wondering this, and you don't need to give me an exact date, but I know there's been talks about having a U.S. ticker, or not a U.S. ticker, because you already have that, but a uplisting to a major board in the U.S. Do you guys have a time frame for that? Because I personally think when you read Twitter on this topic, a lot of people think, yeah, you know, that's just going to be a nothing burger. It's not going to really do anything. I strongly disagree. I think it's just going to have this massive kind of tsunami of new investors and funds that can now kick in. Is there a rough timeline for that for you guys that you can share with me?
Yeah, well, I'll start by agreeing with you. Most of our clients are in the U.S., and we do think that U.S. listing helps a lot of those clients, whether it's by way of approvals or the broker dealers they're dealing with in the local U.S. market. It does make a difference. And in addition to that, we have other possibilities globally in order to improve trading and liquidity. So it doesn't just stop there. In terms of the timetable, can't answer specifics. That's handled by our specific product managers and legal people, and it's a complicated process, so can't give you an estimate on it.
But you can confirm that it's in the works.
Yeah, we did mention that we would apply.
Okay. I got a question for you. So I was looking at the numbers yesterday, and this last weekend, I was having lunch with 2 friends, and you know the setup was like a joke. 3 investors walk into a room having lunch. There's the Canadian investor, there was an American investor, and there was more of a, let's say, a global investor that moves around a lot. And we're talking about different investments. I'm talking about uranium. I'm just thinking, you know what? I just don't see how it fails. I think it's the easiest story to understand. And one of them asked me, okay, well, what could go wrong? This supply-demand story, all that, with the exception of a black swan event, like another Fukushima, what could really go wrong in this space and with this idea that we're consuming more than we're producing, uranium, I mean, and maybe you can't get too much into the weeds here, but from you guys, what do you look at as potential threats to this thesis?
Well, it's funny because as much as the trading advantages of our product now, Sprott is a short-term advantage to the market, our thesis is actually very long-term. So uranium is an industry where things take decades, and it's a market which is not in the long term impacted from these short-term trading elements. What we believe is that nuclear power is a fundamental aspect of a decarbonized grid, and that you can't credibly talk about delivering that kind of energy load to the grid without nuclear. And that requires, it's like a super tanker turning around. It requires governments and environmental groups and engineering groups and permits. It's such a long time to change their views towards the grid and impact the reactor build cycle, that it will be hitting us for years and decades. So that increased demand as it starts to build will stress the uranium supply chain. And what we do know is that uranium has cost a lot more to take out of the ground than it's being sold for. So it's just a simple case of long-term demand changing the price and the industry structure for producers, which have to also survive in the short term. It takes a while, but once it happens, I think it'll be a healthier industry. And I don't think much can derail that right now. I think all the pieces of the puzzle are in place to keep that in motion.
I think one thing that's interesting and maybe kind of sad actually is we only think about energy during times of crisis. It's not something that you think about on an ongoing basis, but right now it's front and center with the energy crisis that we're experiencing in Asia and Europe. And sadly, it's a reminder of how dependent we still are on fossil fuels. I think a lot of people think we've made so much progress and headway, and maybe we have, but what we're experiencing right now with the rise of natural gas and oil is that reminder. And I think maybe time that everyone really focuses and understands uranium as the premier alternative solution to fossil fuels.
My question for you is, you can't be serious about decarbonization without understanding that certain minerals like uranium and other battery minerals that are required are just in short supply for that whole sector to change to the degree that it's being asked to change. So we're going to have many years of building up investments in those areas.
Peter, I want to pivot to another topic that we discusssed when we met a month ago that got me really interested, and our audience I think would find this fascinating as well. Sprott is launching a new private placement product. We are privateplacements.com, so when we hear something in that space, we get a little excited and curious. You guys call it the RED PPLP, which stands for the Resource Exploration and Development Private Placement LP. This is being launched out of the Carlsbad office, and it's filling up fast. You guys are basically had opened this up, I believe, to Sprott clients first. And I have some questions, but tell us first what the product is, and I'll get to my follow-up questions afterwards.
Yeah. Well, for us, private placements are an essential tool to use in this industry. It's a way for us to get enough money working in early stage opportunities to ensure that they have the capital they need to complete their task, which is usually to develop a resource, and it gives our clients the access points. So we're very experienced investors and have used that strategy for a long time. It's a business that was previously run by Rick Rule, and most of your viewers would probably know him. He's a legend, but Rick was one person, and he would have to negotiate deals, price deals, research deals, and complete all the paperwork for his clients. It was a very laborious process. And what this new product for us does is it automates and it creates a much more efficient vehicle. It has the buying power and it has the timing power to get access to the right opportunities at the right time. That's what it's all about. And also, I would say that it has the ability to be efficient. The paperwork is efficient. The portfolio can be run as an efficient portfolio as opposed to having to select kind of awkward sizes of deals at various points in time. And it's managed efficiently by a team of technical specialists that can do the groundwork very quickly, and then also handle the selling process when it is time to sell an investment at the right time. I know, even with my access to the business, I can't do that for myself. So this, even for me, I'm going to be subscribing to this product because it's a wonderful way of approaching that business.
I think as someone who invests in private placements, when I started reading about this more, a few things got me excited, and I'd like to just list them off. So the number one thing is the the buying power that you get when you join a fund. And that buying power allows you to dictate your own terms, which is very, very important. You can get much greater terms when you have that sort of buying power because you can be the lead order now. Secondly, and you touched on this, is the efficiency. I hate to this day having to go through these damn sub-agreements that are just so tedious, and no one has time for that. And to add on top of that, no one has time to research all these deals that are out there. And there's a lot of good deals. So having this kind of committee that's doing the legwork for you, and in addition to that, this isn't just for Canadian deals or US deals. You guys are looking at ASX, the Australian Stock Exchange.
Yeah, global.
And let me tell you, I think bandwidth and how much time you have in a day is finite, and you don't have enough time to look at all these deals. So for those reasons, I'm actually, I guess, a disclaimer, considering it myself. Because I think it's a no-brainer if you want exposure to natural resources using PPs. And that got me really excited when me and you were talking initially, which is kind of the catalyst why I emailed you. I said, hey, Peter, we should do a talk because our audience needs to know about this. I think this is a great opportunity. And I think that, and you touched on this, and I still struggle with this. I have a hard time with my timing on when to sell. Sometimes my timing's good, sometimes it's not. But the emotional turmoil that I go through anytime it's time to decide, I could do without that.
And you lose track running your own portfolio. So as you mentioned, those of us who know the business the best, if we're able to say, look, this is a great idea, I think those who are occasional investors should see it as the same. So yeah, we're excited about it. I think it's going to be a great new way to approach that business.
That's fantastic. Can you tell us about, and this kind of sounds like I'm being very greedy. Maybe the expectations are too high, but what else are you guys working on?
Well, I've got to say, I've never seen our company in better shape. And investors are coming back to the mineral sector in a big way. It's broader and more sustainable in my view than it's ever been in the past. Precious metals, while they've been out of favor this year, while everything else kind of skyrockets, are such a great hedge against the financial system. And I think investors are more broadly holding them in portfolios. So that's still our mainstay.
And what's your take on, I know you touched on precious metals and gold and silver. Do you think, right now, there's some good deals to be had. I talked to Rick recently, and he's talking about how he's starting to look at some silver deals, some royalty companies. Do you, in your personal opinion or Sprott's opinion, do you see that there could be a rally with some strength, some legs on it going into the end of this year and early next year?
I do. Personally, I don't expect that the taper will be successful. I think the taper is going to create stress in the system. And I think with that stress, precious metals will do very well. The equities are coming from a depressed valuation base, as I mentioned. I think there's going to be M&A in the sector. I think the larger producers are going to gobble up some of the intermediates, and the intermediates are going to gobble up some of the developers. So what we see is a very constructive base right now. And we are shopping, looking for opportunities for new investment.
So it's definitely a buyer's market. Would you say so?
It's been a buyer's market, certainly this year. I mean, the sector's really taken a pause. A lot of stocks have consolidated, and there's been a lack of new buyers to the sector. I think that will all change within a few short months.
Do you have a personal opinion on, and you hear this a lot, about how Bitcoin and cryptos have really stolen some of the energy that used to go into precious metals, and that's no longer there? What's your take on that? Do you think there's some validity to that, or is it just really not true?
Well, it's valid because it's happening. And I would say cryptos have certainly becoming a $2 trillion asset class. Cryptos have taken flow away from gold and silver. I don't think that's debatable. What is interesting is they do have the same philosophy. And for us, we'd much rather be involved with a hard asset backing like gold or silver. I think it's more proven. In the end, it will be more liquid and also a bit more stable. So we prefer our sector. But what I can tell you is that I would expect gold and silver to go on the blockchain and to compete more effectively with cryptos as well. So I think that whole rush will come in as gold and silver themselves will adopt to I think gold and silver will adopt to be blockchain eligible and to appeal to a younger investor base.
Is that something that Sprott would look at and
we already are an investor in those technologies, and we feel highly confident that they've been proven and that they'll be rolled out commercially in the next couple of years.
Well, listen, as an organization, you guys are hyper productive and very enterprising, and it's always very inspiring to speak to yourself and people that represent Sprott. I think on this crypto talk, I think there's enough room for everyone. I don't think you need to pick a side. I personally own some crypto, so I agree with you. I don't think this should be a polarizing thing. I think there's opportunities on both sides, and you should play both sides. Peter, I want to thank you for your time. This was very nice to be able to do this and shoot this in an interview format so we can share this with our followers and subscribers. This was really what I was hoping to achieve because of our initial talk, and I wanted to hopefully recreate that so our subscribers can also get excited about everything that's going on. Do you have any final remarks for us before we end the interview?
No, I appreciate your time. I think your sector and what you're covering here, I think it's great work. So many productive opportunities. Wish you well in your business, and thank you for taking the time to interview us about ours.
Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it.